Do you have any superstitions you could tell us about?
Yeah, so growing up, whenever we wanted a snow day, we would flush ice cubes down the toilet. And that was our guaranteed way to make sure that tomorrow school is canceled.
When I reheat like pizza in the fridge, I always take a bite out of it before I do it, and I have to do it for exactly 1 minute.
I used to play on a volleyball team, and whenever I messed up, I always tightened my ponytail, and that was like my reset.
Hey, welcome back to Take a Leap. I'm one of your co-hosts, Josh.
And I'm the other co-host, Leah.
And we are so excited to have Kyle in studio with us today. What's up, Kyle?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're excited. So Kyle, you are a volleyball player here at BYU. Could you tell us just a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so this is my second year here at BYU. I'm from Chicago, from the suburbs, so kind of a little bit outside the city. But I've played volleyball as long as I can remember, really, 9-10 years now. And I'm an evangelical Christian, so yeah.
Are you a fan of deep dish pizza?
It's like a once a month thing, you know?
Okay.
Like there's a limit. It's amazing once a month.
Yeah.
All right.
But
I think that makes sense. I feel like it's too soupy.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever had like real Chicago deep dish.
It's good.
Yeah, and there's places in Chicago that'll call themselves deep dish pizza that just aren't. You want a real one? Lou Malnati's is solid.
It is good.
Giordano's calls themselves deep dish pizza. I'm not buying it. It's just a stuffed pizza. They just put two on top of each other and call it deep dish. It's
a travesty.
It's not real.
No, it's yeah.
Yeah.
It's not right.
I'm from Wisconsin, so I've gone to Chicago quite a few times.
When did you first get into volleyball? Do you remember a time?
Gosh, I can't remember exactly when. I knew that it was kind of predetermined as soon as I was born that I was going to play volleyball. So my parents met playing volleyball at Wisconsin-Madison.
Shout out Wisconsin.
Yeah, go Badgers. And it was kind of one of those things that all of us were going to play volleyball at some point, me and my three brothers. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad we got into it. It's a good thing now, but we didn't really have a choice.
Nice. That makes sense. What do you do to prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually for the game of volleyball?
I mean, there's a lot to it. I think that praying before a game is huge. Just get your mind in the correct place, but also we're not in control. As much as we want to be in control on the court, the ball might be in my hands, but I'm not in control of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's actually reassuring, I think, in a way. But mentally, obviously, we go through our pregame procedures. We got a pregame meal. We've got all of those things that I think probably most schools do. But I think visualizing is another thing. That's something that the coaches harped on a lot last year is go back, see yourself do it successfully a lot of times. And then when you're in that situation, you've already felt it. You've already experienced it. And it's just a lot more comfortable.
Cool. Do you pray like as a team before the games or is that more individual?
Yeah, we pray as a team. I pray individually as well. But our team does pray before every game.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel like visualization is kind of a crazy thing. Will Farron, shout out to the BYU kicker, he was talking about how he visualizes and how it helps him like not get too high or too low, no matter the situation. And so when he's, having to kick a game-winning field goal against Utah, it's like, I've been here 1,000 times in my head.
It just feels familiar. Right. And you see how that worked out for him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. I was there.
Really?
Yeah, I was there.
Wow.
Speaking on prayer, I was praying hard for that game. I feel like, in my experience, I have a couple of friends who have been setters. You're a setter, right?
Yeah.
All of the people I know who are setters have also been phenomenal basketball players. Did you play basketball growing up?
I played for a while, and people give me grief because I say that it was too physical. They're like, oh, you must have quit because it was too physical. Yes, I did. You're right. You got me there. I will admit it. But yeah, I played for a while and just kind of chose volleyball in the end. You kind of have to choose eventually, and it just became that time.
I feel like basketball is one of the most like injury-prone sports. So it's like, I don't want to be out with an ACL tear and then have it be done. And obviously ACL tears and other things like that happen in volleyball too. You're not like completely free from it, but.
Well, I'll take a net between me and the other guys.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What led to your decision to come to BYU? I mean, I know you, so I've actually heard you talk about this a little bit, but For those people who don't know, what kind of went into that decision to come to BYU as an evangelical? Because I mean, obviously it's not super common.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. It's definitely something that I prayed about. There was a lot going into that decision. I was committed somewhere else actually at first, decommitted from there, and the timeline just sort of worked out with BYU that they had an opening at the same time that I had an opening for other reasons. And I took a couple other visits. I looked at a couple other schools at the same time, but what it came down to was the people on the team and the people just in this place, right? We take it for granted because we live it every day, but I don't think there's a lot of places where people are as kind and as loving as they are here. And just being able to build those relationships with my teammates that was the reason. There was not like a 1A and one, that was the reason.
Super cool. How have you felt then coming to BYU, being surrounded by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? How has that experience been?
Yeah, I mean, there's two answers that I give people all the time. One, just living in Utah, obviously it's different, but there's two ways that it's different. I remember one weekend I went skiing on Saturday. I went to a rodeo that night, and I went and played 18 holes of golf the next day. Where else in the world are you going to do that? Seriously, where else in the world other than Utah are you going to be able to do that? But just culturally, it is different. I mean, there's adjustments that you're expected to make and you have to make, but from a faith perspective, I've actually really enjoyed it because, I mean, so many people here spent 2 years talking about faith and they're totally open and willing to do that exact same thing now. So I think that the environment here is one where people are curious, and opportunities like this are a perfect example. Yeah. I mean, hearing my story, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a lot of people are trying to convert you when they find out that you're not a member of the church?
Well, one thing is, I do feel that way. I think that that's absolutely true here, but I love that personally. I think that that's the truest sign that you care about me, right? If you believe that your faith is eternally significant and you care about me, why would you not want to convert me?
Right.
Or what is that saying if you don't want to convert me?
Yeah.
So I think that that's a tremendous sign of respect and care and love in my life. But it's true. It's here.
Yeah.
It's happening.
It's true.
For sure.
The other day I did see some missionaries talking to you. I'm like, yeah, get them.
That's so funny. That's such a positive view on that. I've never heard someone say that before, but I really like it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same both ways. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It should be. And when I talk about my faith with people, I found that they're very open to listening. And I really do appreciate that environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I served a mission, and I think that if you believe in your convictions, you should be willing to share them with other people, especially, like you said, if you care about people, then why wouldn't you share them? And I don't know if I'm going around always trying to convert people, but I care enough about people that I'm like, well, let's talk about it, let's have a common ground. And even if you don't want to convert it, I totally get it. If you don't want to be baptized, that's fine. But I'm still going to care about you as a person, and I still want to hear your side of things and connect on that level.
Yeah. And even if it's not a total conversion, I've talked to some of my friends back from Wisconsin in high school, who are non-denominational Christian, and we just talk about different topics, and they would accept some of the Latter-day Saint explanations for things like the afterlife, etc. And it doesn't always require a full baptism or conversion. Sometimes you can just answer their questions and move on.
Yeah, meet people where they're at. Mm-hmm. That's the thing about open conversations is we find that there's a lot of common ground. And when you can start from that place, it's really cool where you can get to.
Yeah. Kyle, I'm wondering if you've always been a person of faith, or if you could talk a little bit about faith growing up and how you can you point to a specific time that you started believing in God?
Right. So when I was young, I went to a Christian school, pretty much preschool through 4th grade. And I ended up going through that part of my life just kind of, I don't know if cultural Christian is totally the correct term, but I think that looking back, increasingly, that's how I saw myself. Christianity wasn't the lens through which I viewed everything. It was kind of the other way around. It was like a secondary lens that I applied sometimes, right? And it was totally the wrong way. I think probably 4 or 5 years ago, I don't even know what it was. I think it was prompting from the Spirit. I mean, that is what it was. It just said, you got to go back to church. I went back. I went with my mom. I remember a Christmas service probably 6 years ago. We went just randomly. And they were using a comparison to a jar and how you fill jars with stones. And they were, the entire time I thought that it was going to, the religion can just be the little stones that you pour in at the end and it fills up the rest of the space. But he took it the totally opposite direction and said, no, it needs to be the biggest stone, that everything else is built on that. And it just hit me. I don't know why. Started going back to church and realized how I need to view my entire life through that lens. So I got baptized probably 2 or 3 years ago. It was pretty recent. So you said, have I always believed? I've always believed, but I don't know that I knew what that meant until recently.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go through a similar situation. I feel like growing up, it was just kind of like we're going to church because we go to church, not necessarily because I want it to like change or impact or guide my life. And at a certain point, you have to look at your life and say, well, it should, right? Like if I actually believe this, if there's a point to me going to church, then it should be like the major thing. Like I always think about not to talk about BYU football too much, but Kalani Sitake's post game sometimes just gets me hyped. And he's talking about this one scripture where you have to build your rock on the foundation that is Jesus Christ. And I think if you're not doing that, then everything else is kind of going to fall away and be insignificant. And I feel like, especially when you have to balance school and sports and God, that sometimes gets difficult for people. How do you approach that when you have a lot of school on your plate and a lot of, trying to fit God into it and volleyball on top of it?
Well, I mean, to me, it's not a balancing act. To me, it's God needs to be one. Faith needs to be one, and everything else follows after that. Our coach talks a lot about being a student athlete. That means being a student first and an athlete second. Well, I mean, if we're really being honest, what we need to be is a Christian student athlete, right? I need to be Christian. That's 1A. And then there's this, huge gap that I can't even make with my arms to student and then to athlete, right? So balancing that, I think, just takes the proper perspective. Yeah. That's what I would say. And it's doable.
Yeah, I love that answer. I think, too, we talked recently in one of my religion classes about how if you don't have faith in Christ, then everything else falls apart. And the reason that you're doing anything or keeping any promise has no merit anymore without faith in Christ. So, yeah, I think that's a really good answer. We talked to Kenneth Rooks recently about his experience running in the Olympics, and he drew parallels between running and living the gospel. Do you think about volleyball in the same way? And if so, could you share maybe a comparison or something?
Well, first off, how cool, by the way, just to walk around campus and see Olympians.
Yeah.
Seriously, how cool is that? But yeah, I like the comparison specifically for running because obviously we're saved by faith, but that faith needs to be enduring and persevering. And so much of that is what running is. I chose volleyball because I can run as minimum as possible, as little short sprints as possible. There you go. Another reason why I quit basketball. But perseverance is so central to running. That's so much of what it is. It's a mental game. And in volleyball, I would say it's different, but there's definitely truths about the gospel that you can find in volleyball as well. How are you going to respond to hardship? Because we talk about the gospel. The gospel is good news. It's great news, but it's not easy news. And sometimes I think those two issues kind of get a little bit mixed up. It doesn't mean that because you're a follower of Jesus, everything's, peaches and roses after that. It's not going to be. And that's the same. We could have the best team in the country, but guess what? Someone's going to go back to the line and they're going to bomb a serve and they're going to ace us. And maybe they might do it again 2, 3, 4 times. How are you going to respond? How are you going to respond when things get tough like that? And I absolutely think that is a lesson that's transferable from volleyball to just the way that we live our lives.
Yeah, I feel like at different points in a career, I feel like you might be tempted to give up at certain points. Have you ever been so discouraged with your volleyball career that you're like, I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if I'll go to college or whatever.
Yeah, I remember being in high school. We had just one goal that we were dead set on. right? We wanted to go win a national championship. No team, no high school or no club team from the state of Illinois has ever won a national championship at any level.
Wow.
A men's team. And we wanted to be the first to do it. And we did not have the talent to do it. We weren't even close. I mean, the guys, the California teams, it just wasn't close. They've been playing since they were 6 years old. Our guys started when they were sophomores in high school. But we centered on that goal. I mean, we were just dead set on it. And we worked harder than any other team in the country. And I'm convinced of that. It wasn't even close. We got ourselves in the last day to the quarterfinal match, right? That's where you want to be. You play the quarterfinal, semifinal, championship match. That's how the last day goes. Just really came together as a team. We were rolling. We were 9-0, and we ended up losing that first match that morning. It was a match we probably should have won. And man, that was tough. Man, was that tough. Because you just see what I had set probably 4 years, no more, 6, 7 years of my life on that goal, winning that championship. And that was the end of the line, right? I was a senior. There's no extra, fifth COVID year that I'm going to get to come back and go at it again. So, I mean, that disappointment, that was tough.
Yeah. And then how does your faith build you back up after any failures, even if it's maybe just a single loss in the regular season? But
yeah, I mean, our generation focuses so much on identity, but I think a lot of the time we look for it in the wrong place. When your identity is centered on something just like you were talking about, that is the rock, right? That is that firm foundation that's not going to shake. It's unshakable. When your identity is in that and that alone, any loss it just doesn't, it has its proper place, right? You can view it through that lens and see what it really is, right? It doesn't change anything about me. When I am a follower of Christ, when I win or lose, I'm still a follower of Christ, and that is what matters. That's it. End of the story. So it's so reassuring to have that as an athlete.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Do you have something, Leah?
I was just going to say, thanks, Celestial. That's pretty much it. We've talked a lot about volleyball and how you use your faith to kind of overcome these losses. And I'm wondering if you have advice to young people who feel pressure from their teammates or classmates to step away from their religion, if you've ever felt that at all. Yeah.
Well, sports is an awesome environment, right? But it's sort of a melting pot. You're going to have a lot of teammates who are not Christian, who are actively against a lot of the things that you're trying to do. You're going to have a lot of experiences where people want you to go ways that are opposite of your faith. It's just the truth of it, right? My advice in those situations would be to remember what matters, right? And remember what's true, and remember what's real, and remember what's eternal. Because when you think of it through that lens, the choice is it's not even a choice. It's just so abundantly clear that what matters, and maybe that means the idea of delayed gratification, right? Putting off what sounds nice and sounds fun and sounds, all of those things for what is actually satisfying, right? The Bible promises that eternity with God is actually satisfying. And I don't even think we can have an idea of what that is like. So that's what makes it tough, right? Obviously, that's what makes it tough. When you can't grasp what that satisfaction, that ultimate satisfaction is like, it's so tough to say, I'm going to put off this thing that sounds great in the moment. But it's a faith that God has come through every time he said he's going to come through. When we look back in our lives, I know I can share countless examples of times that has happened in my life. He's been good on his promise. Why would he not be good on this promise?
Yeah, I think I like to think all the time about no matter where I'm at in life, I'm at the end of the line kind of when it comes to undergrad at BYU. I'm in my last semester, and it's about maintaining an eternal perspective, basically. And I think that's what you're talking about, right? Where, okay, ultimately, what is God's plan for me, and how can I accomplish that? But also recognizing if what I thought was God's plan, but it was really just my plan, and I'm freestyling, and I fail at that, why would I get mad at God over that? Or why would I give up because of that? And I think that's a great example. Even other people who might try to bring you down or whatever, just being like, no, I have an eternal perspective. I have a godly perspective. And that's what really matters.
I remember a couple weeks ago, my church back home, the pastor, he's incredible, and he delivered one of the best analogies that I've heard about pretty much what you're talking about. He was talking about going out hiking, right? That's kind of the grounds he used for it. He said that we're all sort of hiking a path, right? Imagine, and maybe I'm the leader and I'm leading us down one way, and we get to a place and we're, trying to get back. The sun's setting and it's getting rough, right? And I'm telling you, I am confident it's to the right, right? Well, now you go and climb a tree and you can see there's the road right there. There's where we're getting. And you're telling me, hey, I'm certain I have seen it is to the left. And that's kind of what it's like between our perspective and God's perspective. He is up on that tree. Who would I be when you got back down to say, no, it's to the right? Right. Well, it's just when we have that context and that perspective, it becomes so much clearer. And we can't have that in the moment. We're not able to. With our finite selves, we are not able to have the context and perspective that God does sort of up from that tree and say, look, this is going to work out for you.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of immoral actions come because people don't have that context and they don't recognize, well, yeah, without God, of course, that's going to be a fine thing for you to choose or to do. But if you do have an eternal perspective, looking that there are going to be these eternal consequences to our decisions, right? And you need to be careful no matter what you do. I think in society, that's where a lot of our problems come from, because people are looking for what gratifies them right now in the moment rather than what's going to help them long term or eternally. Yeah.
I love that metaphor too, because I think it takes a lot of humility for the first person to say, oh, you're right, I was wrong. Let's go this other way. I don't think that's an easy thing to do. And I think that's something that I can be better at. Probably a lot of us can be better at, but it is important to be humble.
The Christian perspective is absolutely one of humility.
Yeah.
To say that I don't have the full context and say, look, I'm going to trust in you because you've been good on every promise so far. So why would I not?
Kyle's a really great guy who is too tall for his own good. Seriously, he towers over everyone at BYU. And you have to look up to him. You can't help but look up to him. Not only because he's tall, but because of how great a guy he is. So we're really grateful that he came on our show. He's also a great athlete. Contrast that to me. I am not a successful adult. I don't eat vegetables and or take care of myself. So that's kind of a bummer. But we do ask that you please follow us on social media at Take a Leap Podcast. That would just make my day, and it would probably make Leah smile. If you don't want to make my day or make Leah smile, then don't follow us, I guess. But I hope that you feel bad about that. Take a Leap is a production of BYU Radio, and we are under the direction of the very wise Sam Payne. If you don't know who Sam Payne is, just Google him. He's a great guy.